Good morning. My name's Dee. I've never made a video before. This is my first one. I belong to a Facebook page called Student Loan Justice. The creator of that is Alan. Student Loan Justice is a page where you can go and you could post your horrific nightmare stories about your student loans and what's going on with them. And I received a tagline on my Facebook page that said, "You need to read this." And I thought, okay, what is this? And I started skimming through the stories that these people were writing about, and it was pretty graphic, and it was pretty horrific at the extent of what these people were doing when it came to their student loans, and to not lose their homes, or to not lose their car, or to not lose their life. And I was like, wow. Because sometimes when you're going through something so horrific and so damning to your soul, you think that you're the only one going through it. Because you're thinking no one else is this stupid, or no one else would ever do this to themselves. No one else would let this happen to themselves. So I guess I'm the only one. And that's not true. I got brave enough where I posted my story, and I got so many responses like, "Oh my God, wow." And Alan reached out to me and said, "Would you mind speaking with a reporter?" And I was thinking, oh my God, is my story that unique or that genuine that somebody else wants to hear it? Because there's some pretty graphic stories on this Facebook page. And so I thought about it for a while, and then I reached out to him and said, "You know what, I'm going to make a video." And he was thrilled. And I did have a news reporter reach out and she said, "I want to talk to you." So here's my story. I waitressed for 30 years. And after 30 years, it had run its course. I was working at a brick and mortar hamburger joint that's pretty well known. And I worked 8 hours and I came home with $30 in tips. And my ex-husband looked at me and said, "You need to go to school, because I can't afford, to keep paying for you and the house payment and food and bills and everything else, but I'm only supposed to be paying you child support. You need to go to college." So I reached out to a college called Platt College. And for all those people that have never done student loans before, or that are thinking of doing student loans, reach out to a financial advisor, a school advisor, or somebody that's going to walk you through the process of what you are about to endure. I wish I would have. So I went to this college all by myself. I didn't have anybody with me, which was my first mistake. And I was kind of hoping that somebody would have maybe taken me under their wing and said, "Well, these are your options, these are your choices, this is what you have, this is what you're going to get, da-da-da-da-da." No. They just laid out some paperwork and said, "Okay, so, your FAFSA says that you're going to get this much money in student loans. Well, X amount of dollars is going to cover your student loans, but then you're going to have this other excess money that you can use, to live off of, or whatever you want to do with it." And I was like, okay. My interest on that was 8.9%. Now, back in 2001, our society was changing rapidly, and it was changing in a way that people that had grown up in Southern California were not adjusting well. They were not adjusting well. I grew up, when I went to high school, we never had to know any languages. We never had to take a foreign language class. Fast forward to 2001, 99.99% of the jobs in Southern California, which is kind of understandable, but not really. Don't even get me on that soapbox. You have to be bilingual. And I thought to myself, well, if I go to school and I get a degree, I'm going to be able to land a job doing what I want to do. I want to do law work. Well, as I sat there signing my life away on my student loans with an 8.9%, I did the work, I did the homework, I studied for 2 years, got my AA, graduated with honors with a 4.0 grade average, valedictorian, all this stuff. That's what they called it. It was just a little piece of paper that said, wow, you graduated. And I began to hit the pavement. Oh, and I had 3 letters of references from my law professors that said, you don't take her, you're dumb. And I was all geared up and ready to go to work. I was excited. I was finally done with waitressing. I wanted to burn my apron. I wanted to do all these things. And I began to hit the pavement. And I was faced with multiple doors slamming on my face because I wasn't bilingual. And I thought, that is the craziest thing I've ever heard. And that happened for a whole year. Now, when you go to a school and they give you 6 months, to start paying back your student loans, during that 6 months, they're thinking that you're going to land a job. Not the case. Because when my 6-month mark was up, guess what came in the mail? It's money. Your interest rate now, my student loans started out at $25,000 for school. Because I didn't go to a regular college, I went to a trade school. That's another talk for another day. And it turns out that by the time the 6 months was up, my student loans went up to $32,000 with the interest. And I thought, wow, that was kind of quick. In 6 months, that was quick. Well, the interest rate started out at 8.9%, and then it went up when the 6-month mark hit. And it went up to 11.6%. And that's on the tiny fine writing on the end of your contract that says, this is what's going to happen to you. It's so fine, not even a magnifying glass will see it. And so I called up the Department of Education and I told them, I can't do this. I don't have the ability to start paying back my student loans. And it seemed like right then I was placed in a boat in the middle of the ocean with scads of 16-foot great white sharks swimming around me. That's what it felt like. And so they said, well, let's put you in the F word. Let's put you in forbearance, which means you don't have to pay back your student loans, but guess what keeps growing? Your interest. Your interest isn't frozen. No. The interest is still adding on. So my student loans were put in forbearance for $30,000 plus, but the interest was growing. So I had a year's worth of forbearance at $30,000. When the year was up, my interest went to 13.2%. Times that by $30,000, after a year, my student loans then went up to $47,000 from a $25,000 loan. And I was like, oh my God. But the Department of Education, they contacted me and said, because your student loans are in forbearance and you've been granted allotted money, you can still go to school. Well, I pounded the pavement for a year looking for law work. That never happened. So I figured, what do I have to lose? Biggest mistake I ever made in my life was that. Because I felt like the Department of Education had a fishing pole and they threw it out to my boat and said, let me reel you in from the sharks. Well, wait a minute. The only way that we're going to reel you in is if you go back to school. If you don't go back to school, then we're going to let go of the pole and let you stay out there. And every time you don't pay, a shark is going to take a bite out of your boat. And I thought, wow, I'm going to be floating on a toothpick before I know it. Because I didn't have the money. I didn't have any money to start paying back these student loans. I couldn't find work. So I talked to my ex-husband, and he said, just go back to school. What do you have to lose other than my soul? So I went to Everest College, and it turns out that it's a medical assisting program. It is a trade school, the worst trade school that you could ever imagine. Now, I was granted X amount of dollars to go back to school. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but now this is where this gets a little bit on the tricky side. I had X amount of dollars that I could go back to school. I didn't want to go back to waitressing. I didn't know what else to do, and I was stuck. I was stuck in a position that was so bad, I couldn't breathe. I was getting threatening letters from the Department of Education. My student loans were sold to another debt company that was threatening me. They were threatening to take my wages. They were threatening to take my home, my car. They were threatening to sue me. They were sending me letters of threats of being sued. My phone never stopped ringing. It was a constant nightmare. I mean, day in and day out. It was a battering of phone calls, a battering of letters. It was an abuse of power. And that's exactly what it was. And I thought, if I go back to school, it goes back into forbearance. And so, either way, I was screwed. So I sat down in the chair at Everest College and said, I'm thinking of going into your medical assisting program. Little did I know, that was the hellish nightmare added on top of what I already owed in student loans. Was it stupid? Oh yeah. Should I have done it? Oh no. Did I? Oh yeah. Because I didn't know what else to do. I mean, here I am. My rent at the time, in 2002, was $1,350 a month for a mobile home. That was just for the rent of the mobile home. That did not include the land space added on for $265 a month, on top of the $1,300. On top of a cable bill, a light bill, a phone bill, a water bill, um, monthly dues in order to stay at the mobile home. So it kind of adds up. So to round it off, every month was roughly around $1,600 to $1,700 a month just to live there. And so I figured everybody needs medical help. Everybody needs this. And then the funny thing is, when I was sitting there and I'm looking at everyone in this school and all these other people signing up, there was a lot of, shall I say, different ethnics sitting there. And I thought, am I the only white girl here? I'm the only white girl signing up for this school. That's kind of odd. And so the lady that was signing me up had no problem just pounding away at her little laptop, signing me in. The problem is that she knew exactly how much money I had left on my student loans. And she signed me up, rightfully knowing I didn't have enough to cover for the entire school as a medical assistant. She knew that. I didn't know that. She never mentioned it. She was signing me up, so I was under the assumption that I was okay. Nightmare 2. It turns out that once I signed up and I signed my life away on the dotted line again, for some reason I was excited. I was thinking maybe this is going to make a difference. Maybe this is going to help me get to pay back my student loans. Maybe this is going to get me where I need to go in society so I can live a life like others do in society. So she gave me this instruction where to go get my books, and I walked in, and this is going to make me sound really bad, but it's so true. I was the only white girl there. And I thought, something's going on. So basically, in a political sense, I was the only one that spoke English. Everyone else spoke a different language. I didn't. Everyone else did. And I thought, I might be in trouble here. So I go to school, and I'm sitting in the class, and I'm thinking, I'm the only person in here who doesn't speak a foreign language. Oh my God, I'm in trouble. But I stayed with it. I wasn't going to be a quitter. I stayed with it. And 6 weeks into the schooling program, I got a phone call from the office that said that I need to come see them before school starts. This is where it gets ugly. I go in, I sit down, and she says, your student loans didn't cover everything. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she says, it only covered a quarter of what you need. We need another $10,000 from you. And since your student loans ran out, you need to either write us a check for $10,000, or you can go over to the laptop over there and contact Sally Mae and get a loan. And I thought, hold on a minute. I either write you a check for $10,000 right now, which is going to cover the remaining balance of the school, or I can go over to a laptop, log on to Sally Mae, and apply for a loan that's going to give me another interest. And she said yes. And I'm thinking, this is going to help me. This is going to benefit me. This is going to be for me. So either way, I was screwed. I either leave the school and get sued for the $10,000 owed to the school from Everest and from the Department of Education, or I go over to the laptop and sign up for Sallie Mae. I was screwed. No matter what I was going to do, it was going to be bad. And so, for some stupid reason, I walked over to the laptop and I signed up for Sallie Mae. I didn't know what else to do. I had no one to turn to, no one to help me, and the lady that signed me up was the one telling me that I need the other $10,000, and she was looking at me like she was totally tapping her finger on her cup, going, well, what's it going to be? Do I get a check from you, or else do you go over there? Those are the only two options I have. The other option wasn't jump ship. Nope. It was only those two options. Get sued for $10,000 or go do a loan. And as I sat there, typing on the laptop, my brain was telling me, don't do this, don't do this, don't walk away, please walk away. Stop typing, like when you tell your kids, stop talking. My brain was telling me, stop typing. And I was approved for a $11,000 loan. My credit just went into the shitter. It really did. My credit went into the abyss of darkness. So I printed out a letter that said, here, I got to go back to school now. I got to go back to my class. I remained at Everest, but I remained at Everest with my brain thinking, student loans from my AA with my interest now at almost 12%, a little bit over that, on top of my student loans for Everest College, on top of that interest, on top of the Sallie Mae loan, and with their interest. 6. I'm thinking, I'm screwed. I'm gone. So when I got out of school, I graduated, I got out, I began pounding the pavement again, went to all these job interviews because Everest College said that they have job placement, and there were roughly about 45 girls in my class. I was number 45. 46 girls got jobs because they spoke a foreign language. Now, had I been smart enough to say, do you need to speak a foreign language in this school before I sign up with Everest? Had I been smart enough to do that, I wouldn't have done it. But I wasn't smart enough. And is that my fault? Good chance of it. Was it naive of me? Good chance of it. So my first interview was, you don't speak Spanish, do you? And I said, no, I don't. And she says, I'm sorry, but you need to be able to converse with our patients. Now, my mom, on the other hand, said, well, why don't you go to school and learn Spanish? Oh, sure, you want me to go to school, learn Spanish so I can talk in the medical procedure with somebody in a week and land a job. Like that's doable. That's not going to happen. So I pounded the pavement for a year. My student loans were sold to multiple companies. I was being berated with multiple letters, multiple phone calls. At this point, My parents were getting phone calls from debt collectors that said, your daughter signed up for student loans and she's not paying them, so we want the money from you. My mom, she basically told them to go pound sand. So my mom was calling me and saying, we've got people calling me about student loans and you, what's going on? And I thought, I'm in trouble. And I was desperate. I had all of my paperwork all together so that I could sit down and call every single one of these people, these 6 people, and say, I need help. I can't pay this back. Not only did I not get a law job because I wasn't bilingual, I didn't get a job because I wasn't bilingual in the medical field. So either way, I just spent 4 years, roughly 4 years, wasting my life. And I thought, wow. So now, I thought my nightmare only began there. Now, my student loans were sold to a company called Wyndham. Wyndham is a company that was hired by the Department of Education which is a debt collector, to get you to start paying on your student loans. So Wyndham, they reached out to me and said, we have a program that if you pay $5 a month for 10 months on time each and every month, we're going to knock off money on your student loans. We're going to take a pretty good chunk off of your student loans. And I was like, wow, $5 a month. That's not bad. Let's do that. Because they knew exactly what they were doing. I didn't know. Once upon a time, I was a very trusting person. I'm not anymore. This is my student loan packet. As you can tell, it's very full. This is just 1/16 of my student loans. This is Wyndham. Wyndham is from the Department of Education. Wyndham sent me a note last year that said my payment amount for my student loans just for law school, now remember it started out at $25,000, is now $60,000. So I signed up for the $5 program. I did $5 a month for 10 months. I got a letter that said, we wrote off $20,000 of your student loans. That was $20,000 of interest. I didn't even stop to ask, so what's the interest rate now? Because I didn't know. I didn't know what I was doing. All I knew is that I was in trouble and I was living in Panicville, and my neighbors all around me were the other student loans people that were screwed. They were my neighbors also living in Panicville. So that $20,000 that was written off, guess what, was re-added on back again in a matter of 3 weeks because of the interest rate. So basically they got money from me, because what happens is that when you even pay a penny on your student loans on this, they get to hound you still. And because these are federal loans, they're never going to go away. I'm going to be dead in the ground, and somebody from the federal government is going to come up and bang on my tombstone, and they're going to scream, you owe me money. Now comes Navient. Navient took over for Wyndham. Navient is every student loan person's nightmare. This is Navient. Every student loans person's nightmare. And it it turns out that Navient added another shark in the water at my boat. They were sending threatening letters. They were sending threatening wage garnishments. They were sending interest rates that were absolutely insane. My interest rates when Navient, when they took over, was more than my student loans. If you totaled up the interest rate on my student loans, it was more than my student loans of what I owed. That's what I'm basically trying to say. And Navient didn't care. Navient said, too bad. And I was kind of shocked at the cold and callous ways of how they talk to people. And I was shocked at how they treated me. They treated me as if I was a little peon in the road that had been run over. And I was begging them for help, and I was begging them for a way to start wanting to pay this back. Well, fast forward now to 2018, and Navient has been in charge of my student loans. And me still at a dead-end, nowhere-go job, barely making rent, barely making bills, living on food stamps now, living on food stamps of $360 a month to feed me and my daughter. Have you tried feeding 2 people in a month on $360? It's kind of hard. And living on $600 a month on child support is really hard, especially when you got bills. It's almost impossible. Anyway, so Navient said that we're going to gather all of your student loans and make it one. And that's when it got ugly. What Navient did was they totally combined everything of my student loans and drew my interest rate up to 23.9%. I jumped from owing $54,000 on my student loans to now $40,000 in a month. I owe just about what I owe on my student loans, just on interest alone. So now I got another letter just recently from Navient that said, guess what? We have now just tacked on $25,000 in interest. So not only is my interest equal to my student loans, I now owe $130,000 in student loans. And this all started from a $25,000 loan. This all started from me wanting to hopefully trust somebody or wanting to believe in the Department of Education. And then I started thinking, boy, if the Department of Education is going to screw me over, I guess all the high schools are screwing students over too. Wow. So now, let's talk all about the elephant in the room. All of us on the Student Loan Justice page on Facebook know that we went to college. We don't need somebody saying, well, you're the one that went to college. Why'd you go to college? If you can't pay for it, why did you go? We know that. We don't need that said in our faces, because you know what? For the people that are making minimum wage and being able to make their car payment, make their insurance payment, feed their kids, dress their kids, get their school supplies for their kids, live a normal everyday life, go on dates, do this, do that, and pay rent, good luck, because that doesn't happen. Right now, our kids are in a crisis when it comes to their education. They're in a crisis. And it worries me all about my daughter because she wants to be a zoologist. How do I tell her, don't go do your dream because you're going to get screwed over by your student loans? Go live on welfare. Go live on food stamps. Go live on cash aid because you're going to get screwed over by your student loans. That pretty much seems to be the case. Because our student loan national debt, if that was, well, actually, our student loan national debt is so high, no one's winning. Who's winning here? The Department of Education is screaming, no one's paying us back. The federal government that's giving us all these student loans are saying, why aren't they paying us back? Well, when you tack on interest as high as mine, how are you supposed to even make a dent in the student loan? I'm almost 60 years old. Now, this is now my part 3 of my student loan fare. I took a job working out at Target, and I was a cashier, and I was working 40 hours a week, and I still wasn't able to feed my daughter or to provide or to do anything I needed to do as a parent in order to have her live a life. I mean, well, why should she be crucified for something that I did? She is now paying the price. I'm not. She is. And I thought, no, everyone is always telling me that I need to get into real estate, that I could do a really good job, that I could sell homes really easily. So I went to real estate school. I passed my nationals. I'm now taking my state test on Saturday. While I was in school, one of the questions is, on a test, it said, if you have student loan debt, will you get a real estate license? And the answer was no. And I just crumbled. I cried so hard because I just can't seem to get ahead. I can't seem to get on the boat of life and sail through it and give my daughter a life that she deserves, that I deserve, and that everyone else deserves on the student loan justice page. I can't seem to get ahead. Nobody can. Nobody's winning here. Everybody is losing here. No one is seeking out a resolution except Alan. Alan is trying desperately for us to get help. And it's just crazy. Because right now, if you take your kid, your average kid at 16 years old, girl, boy, whatever, and you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, hacking it out on minimum, I want to be a cashier at Target. That's what I want to be when I grow up. Yeah, that's a fulfilling life, isn't it? They have dreams. They want to go places. They want to do things, and so did we. They want to go and be a police officer, go be a cop, go be a judge, be a lawyer, be a doctor, be whatever. And that's going to take student loans. And right now, we, as parents of these kids that have been screwed over by student loans, are fearful of that's going to happen to our own kids. Because right now, it's a vicious cycle. And like I said, nobody's winning. And the feds are just really putting more pressure on us. And they now want to confiscate our homes. And the home I'm living in is my parents'. But when they pass away, guess what? It becomes mine. And if you don't think that Navient is going to come screaming and banging on my door after they pass away and say, guess what? We just bought your house. It's pretty scary. It's really scary. Just because we wanted to go to college and make a life for ourselves and our family, and we have been screwed, blued, and tattooed. I'd throw out the F-bomb, but I won't do that. And it's just, you know, we want a life for our children. We want a life for us, and the only way to get it was going to college. So, I don't know. Let's see what happens. I was advised by my real estate educator to go take a test. I passed my nationals. I'm taking my state. I want to see if I do get my real estate license, because the statute of law in real estate says if you are in debt, if you are in debt of student loans, you will not get a real estate license. And I don't know how that has anything to do with selling homes. People are being literally turned down in jobs because when they do background checks on you, it shows up that you can't pay back your student loans. I guess you're a deadbeat. We don't want you here. They're being literally turned away from jobs. And it's a scary thing, but like I said, nobody's winning. Everybody's losing. So, when I take my test on Saturday, I guess I'll let you guys know if I get a license. Wish me luck.